The triangle choke is one of the most powerful submissions in jiu-jitsu and one of the first you learn, but a lot of people struggle to finish it. So this video, I'm going to go through a basic system to understand how to finish it for most of the common defenses and situations you'll set up. So the first principle to understand for a tight finish of the triangle choke, and then I'm going to show how to get to this point, is that we need to cut off the space between his neck and my knee. So if you imagine like a nutcracker, right, you have to open it to bring it all the way in to close it, and that's when it's the most powerful. A lot of people will close their triangle like this, and it looks really tight objectively on the outside, but there's this gap between his neck and my knee. What I want to do is stretch my leg straight so that my leg cuts all the way into his neck, and that when my leg chops down, it conforms around his neck, and that's what's gonna make it tight. So now, even without pulling his head, it's a tight finish. Everything we're gonna do from here is gonna be about reverse engineering to get back to this tight finish position. So often when you get a triangle choke, you're not gonna land it in a really tight finish position like you do with an armbar. Usually you land into this position in some way, and then the guy has a lot of defenses up, and the skill is about being able to break him down to the finish. So the first thing I always focus on with a triangle choke is breaking him down so I can get to that tight finish I showed before. But a lot of times when you get here, guys are gonna frame on your chest or stomach and posture their head up, and now no matter how much you try to posture, you can't break him down. So the first thing I focus on is getting this grip and dragging it across the body. A lot of people think that the dragging the arm across the body is to make the choke tighter. I don't do this to make the choke tight. I don't actually need this across the body to finish, but to break his posture, I do. So if he's clasping hands here, if he's grabbing my lapel, I need to push this arm across the body to finish. So what I'm gonna do is if he grabs the lapel here, which is a common defense, or the belt, I'm gonna get a cross grip on the sleeve. I go underneath and grab my own wrist, and now I do this with my left wrist, and I drive into his wrist to break the grip. Once I break this grip, now I'm gonna grab his wrist, and as he tries to re-grip, I don't allow him to re-grab the lapel. I'm going to drag this across, and once this is across, stay postured up. See, once this is across, I switch to the elbow. Now I do kind of a crunch and do a sit up here and pull my knees forward, and that's gonna break him forward. Keep your posture up. See, it brings him forward. Once he's forward, now I keep this left hand behind the tricep, and my right hand is gonna come to his head, and I use my elbow to latch in right in front of his arm. This prevents him from pulling his arm back, and now my left arm is free. I'm killing two birds with one stone here. I control his posture, and I keep the arm across the body so that he can't regain his posture. From here, my left arm is now free to start grabbing my own shin, and I can start putting my foot on the hip. What I wanna do is, as I put my foot on the hip, I wanna make sure I don't leave a big gap here, right? I wanna go foot on hip, and now I want to do two things. I wanna slide away as I try to tighten this right leg across the neck. So I slide back, I readjust here, and see as I tighten this, look, I stretch my leg straight up. What this does is, going back to the nutcracker analogy, I have to open it to bring it all the way in to close it, right? So if I just adjust with this, I actually lose the tightness there. If you can come in and show this. If I adjust like this, I lose that tightness. So what I wanna do is slide back. I can even turn on my side a little bit to pull him in. Once I've pulled it all the way in, now I can latch my leg down tight, and now my other leg comes up and locks. If you have longer legs or you're fighting someone with a smaller frame neck, I actually don't like to lock at the foot. I like to take my left knee, and I almost drive his head more into the crook of my knee as I latch high over my shin. From here, it's very, very tight, and I can start to finish from here. So a few other really important details on the finish here is as I slide away, this is extremely important because it breaks his posture. Often people are gonna try to stack you. To stack you, they need to be close to you. See, he start coming up into me? He starts coming up into me and getting my hips up off the floor and stacking me, right? So as I slide away, see, keep trying to stack, it's much harder for him as I slide away, right? So that's a really key feature. Another thing is, as I lock in, make sure you keep your feet pointed upward, and I don't wanna just pull down, and the head is a nice extra, but really you should be getting the finish by contracting all of these muscles in your leg. Every small little muscle, try to contract everything. You wanna make everything contract, right? It shouldn't just be kind of loosely here and you pull the head. All of these muscles need to squeeze really down. Another key feature for making the finish tight is often as I adjust this and I stretch this leg straight up so I can cut in, I shift on my right side a little bit, and that makes it easier to get this leg in tight around the neck. But as I do this, I actually, when I finish, now that it's latched in tight, I want to come back to a flat hip, okay? I want my hips dead center when I finish, ideally. You can still finish it sometimes without that, but I always want to be trying to bring it back there. So I make my adjustment, I get the leg in really tight, I come over and I recenter my hip to the left side to finish over there. All right, so now we're gonna deal with some of the common defenses and how to counter them. So one thing your opponent will often do is he takes his elbow and he tries to dig it really heavy to the opposite side that you want to drag the arm across, right? So here, you know, even though he's not grabbing the lapel, I don't have to break the grip. It can still be a bit tricky. So what I want to do is I bridge my hips up all the way, and this pops his elbow out of that pocket, right? So try to stay down tight there. He can't stay up there. Now I come behind the elbow, I can drag this across. Once we drag it across, I'm going to drop my hip, and then we're right back in the same finishing mechanic position we were in before. So another extremely common counter is going to be your opponent trying to stack you, right? So the main thing with a stack is both sliding back, like I mentioned before, and trying to get a side angle, okay? So as he starts stacking, I want to do this motion where I drop my hip to the floor, right? So I arch my low back and I kind of drive like this so that as he pushes, I'm going to slide back and to the side, right? So we're here like this. As he starts stacking, here I kind of drive my head in and I make my hips really heavy so I slide back here. If I can, I'll put the foot on the hip, but if you feel good with the hip movement, sometimes you don't even need to do that, so keep stacking. He stacks and see I slide and my hips get out and now I can adjust to the side. Often him stacking will actually tighten the position on himself so I can just slide into an immediate finish from here. So another extremely common counter, especially if you're trying to tighten this, like I showed, is your opponent will take this free hand, maybe even both, and they try to drag this knee to the floor on this side. And this can be really frustrating because you're tight here. And again, if you understand what we need to make the choke tight with my leg being tight on the neck, he's doing the opposite of that. He's trying to separate the space by pulling on that and leaning on the bad side. So what I want to do is I always know this is coming. So we land the initial triangle position, however we do. I'm going to start progressing with the first finish that I showed you guys, and then I make quick adaptations as he does different defenses. So as soon as I feel his hand starting to come up for this, I know he's going for that. I'm immediately going to swipe his tricep elbow over here, and I open my elbow up like this, right? So what happens is he starts pulling, start pulling it, I go here, and now I'll even grab over with my left arm, keep pulling me to the side, and this prevents him from pulling me over because my elbow acts like a tripod, right? So keep pulling that way. He can't pull. Now I can start adjusting, and see this little adjustment I did here? Sometimes instead of going on the hip, when I unlock, I keep this knee pressure in. I never want to open this because that gives this space, right? What I did was I just went here and I kind of did a little jump. So I maintain the pressure with this leg and I do a little jump there so that I can relock it in, okay? Again, I'm giving you guys all the common things you're gonna do, but if you can understand that main mechanic that we need to keep the leg in tight and we need to keep our hips in close there, you're gonna find the way to finish. So one more time. We're in here, I'm going for the triangle, I'm trying to adjust to that finish, he starts to pull out to the side, I catch this. If he gets me down a little bit, start pulling down, keep going, keep going. I'm gonna try to grab this and scoop over and drag myself back across. There is a point where if he pulls you far enough over and gets enough separation, you have to switch into a transition or you have to focus on defending, but at this point we wanna defend early so he doesn't do that. So one of the other really common counters is your opponent will take his arm and go behind your back. I try to avoid this if I can. So if I'm ever here and I'm pushing up and he starts trying to go behind the back, I'm always gonna try to catch it early before he clasps his hand. So you see when he went there, go there. See, I try to catch the hand early before he can really make a good grip. And if I keep my hip high, it's harder for him to really get it around, and I'm gonna try to scoop it back across. But of course, sometimes they're gonna successfully get it through. They might clasp hand, they might grab your belt or hip or something. So when this happens, what I'm gonna do, again, I want my leg tight in that neck, I'm gonna come through, I grab my fingers like this, and now I'm gonna cross my feet, and now I'm gonna extend both legs straight up as I squeeze my knees together. This uses my right hamstring thigh to cut into the neck, and this drives the shoulder in, and you get a really tight triangle choke finish here as well. You can totally put someone out with this. It's a very strong choke. Again, the key is to understand how the mechanic works. I need the right leg to cut into the neck, this shoulder to cut into his neck here, and I go straight up. So again, we start in the initial triangle. I'm trying to finish. He goes around. When I feel he's got there, I go up, catch the fingers together, lock the feet, And now I go straight up with everything, and this creates a really tight choke on the neck. And in the worst case scenario, if he goes back around with this, sometimes he just gets such an angle that you can't really get that choke tight. The best thing to do at that point, if you just really can't do it, you could stay here for a long time. You can't really get out. But if you're like really pressed in a situation where you need to score right now or you need to go for a finish, then you can push the head and transition out to an omoplata. If you don't know how to finish an omoplata, I have a full video on that. I can put a link in the description. So another common one will be as you get the triangle, when you get really, really tight, some guys, they kind of slide back out. Exactly. So you almost get to a point where you're just on their head and you feel like you're just about to lose the triangle choke. When this happens, it's going to be very hard to get the triangle, but this is my favorite time to go for the triangle armbar. I don't even unlock and do all this stuff. I just start pushing the elbow against the way it's going to go. When he slides out like this, it makes this armbar extremely tight. So when I'm here like this and I'm on his head and I don't have any way to finish the choke, I immediately start pressing this to go for that armbar. Usually, sometimes you'll just get it if you hit it really quick, but usually they'll drive back in really hard. When you start doing this, you have to drive back in. Right, exactly like that. He drives back in because he doesn't want to get that armbar. Now we're back in a position that we can adjust towards the traditional finish. So lastly, sometimes you're going to land a triangle choke, and as soon as you hit it, especially if you're going with a big guy, maybe you just missed it, it wasn't quite the perfect setup, and he's going to try to kind of dump truck through and come around your guard like this. You need to know when you're kind of in damage control. So if I'm here and I'm getting a little high on the head, this is here, and I feel like there's a point where it's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to pull this back. I always take my right hand and I go behind his tricep here so that as he comes through on the finish, keep coming through, I make it hard for him to come through, and then I push behind that tricep, come up on my elbow, and now he can't turn back into me, and it allows me to slide away and I get a second chance. Of course, like the setups for your triangle are a different issue than your finishing mechanics, so you can set it up from closed guard, from double sleeve, from collar sleeve, from worm guard. There's all sorts of different setups. But if you don't have a good finish on the triangle, you're always going to be resistant to going to the triangle to try to finish. If you guys like the content, be sure to like and subscribe. Also check out my website. The link is in the description. I have a lot more organized and full systems on there as well.